Welcome to Hashtag Trending, the weekend edition. We call it Project Synapse, AI in action. And we've been getting together for a number of weeks now, talk about AI and do more than talk about AI, share our relative experience and our interest in this. And every Saturday for a while, we've been able to share that with you. My guests are, you've probably heard them before or seen them before, depending on whether you watch on YouTube or you listen to this as an audio podcast. John Pinard, who's a finance executive in Toronto, in Pickering.
I live in Pickering. I work in Toronto.
Do you like Pickering? I don't know. I've never pickered. Yeah, there you go. So welcome. Yeah. And Marcel Gagné, how do you describe Marcel? He's an author. He had the column Cooking with Linux for years. He's now immersed himself in AI. He's taken a dive into the deep end of the pool on AI. Welcome, Marcel.
Thank you. Good to be here.
So welcome, gentlemen. This is the first weeks of 2025. And we were actually going to do a different show. We wanted to really dive into a couple of things. Multimodal was one. And the other one I want to talk about.
That's the one you keep promising to me, but you keep not doing.
Next week for sure. But the holidays were just crazy. And we exited with the 12 days of Shipmas for OpenAI. And they did that beautiful thing. And then had this sort of, and there's O3 at the end of it. And really, I think poorly presented, but as we dug more and more into it over the holidays, what O3 could be became a little deeper than what they actually presented. That's interesting. And then everybody went crazy about agents and made all kinds of announcements leading up to CES and all that. Google, and I think, Marcel, you were the predictor on that. They didn't make a lot of noise, but they made a lot of stuff, I guess is probably the way to put it. So that was why I wanted to have this year-end look forward show so that we could talk about some of the things and also a planning show for us. So, Marcel, what was your holiday like?
Are you talking technologically speaking, or did I have a good time at the holidays? Had a great time at the holidays. Had lots of family and lots of people come to visit. It was awesome. How about yourself?
I was talking about the show.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Actually, when we finished up at the end, like we decided we would go back in immediately after the 12th day of Shipmas. Say that 5 times real fast and see if you don't get the censors to get you on that one. Shipmas. Anyway, when we finished, you know where I'm going with this. When we finished up with this, we decided that we would go back in and give our first impressions immediately after the final presentation, which was O3. And I actually ached over this, and I posted this in our little Discord server. I ached over this because I was feeling a kind of disappointment for something which was quite honestly a seismic shift in terms of AI. We were talking about a model that was released, although it wasn't released to the general public. And I'm going to touch on that in a second here. But this is a model that was blowing away all sorts of benchmarks that, for instance, is a PhD level benchmark where if you're a PhD in your field and you have access to the internet, you average something like 30% or something like this. And I don't have the numbers exactly. If you're an expert in that specific field, this PhD level test, you average something like 80% if it's your specialty. And O3 got something like 87%, blowing away basically all humans that are out there. Then there was the ARC-AGI test, which are questions that are notoriously difficult for an AI, relatively easy for a human. And the best humans score around 80%. And again, like it was creeping up on 90% or something like that, which had a lot of people start to use the word like AGI has officially arrived, artificial general intelligence. And we can argue about that definition in a moment here. But I walked away a little tiny bit disappointed after that. And it was bothering me. This is like amazing stuff. This is incredible stuff. And yet I'm feeling a little let down. And finally, I realized what it was. All of the other days, except for the Apple nonsense, because I mean, who uses Apple in this world? Sorry, I can't resist. I can't resist.
Yeah, absolutely.
Except for that, it was all stuff that was accessible, that was available to everyone, including me. It was all stuff that we could all dig in and play with and do stuff with. And when they announced O3, they announced something that wasn't, if you'll pardon the expression, for regular people anymore. It was the sort of thing where if you want to do these complex computations would cost you tens of thousands of dollars, possibly more, to bring AI, to bring O3 to its full capacities, to take apart these problems. And yes, it's absolutely amazing, but it's not stuff for us normal humans. And I think that was really why I walked away from it disappointed. Like, it took me a couple of days to come to that realization that everything else was for me, in a way, for me and people like me and people like those of us who were obviously a little bit interested in this stuff, but O3 wasn't.
Yeah. And I think the other thing too, Marcel, that I was going to say tied in with that is that so many of the other things that they launched during the 12 days became available the day that they launched it or very shortly thereafter. With O3, it was, we're announcing it, but it'll be launched sometime end of January, beginning of February. And so and the numbers are phenomenal. I went back and looked at my notes, and you're right. Like the PhD level they talk about them being in this 78%. PhD is 70%. O1 was 78%, and O3 is 87.7%.
Can I jump in for just a second there, John? Because I missed this when
Sure.
Marcel said this whole thing on the PhD level. You know where this really came home to me with this morning? I listened to Sabine Hassenfelder. She's a physicist.
Mm-hmm.
And if anybody's on YouTube and really wants to catch a show that is really good from a very smart lady, then she'll explain things in pretty standard terms. You can understand them, but she never talks down to you. But when
she's very German.
Oh yeah. When she said that OpenAI got this thing, I was PhD level math and all that, and it sort of slips by. She said, most of those problems would take me a year to just work through so I could figure out what they're saying. And I went, holy crap, this woman is like 5 times as smart as me. Okay, a low bar, but she's really smart. And so we tossed that one off. This was a big deal for something, remember when we started, that couldn't do math?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Sorry to
And by the
interrupt you,
way, that's okay.
Okay, back to so we were going somewhere. John, you had a train of thought.
No, I was saying that it was tied in with Marcel's comments about that it was a bit of I'll call it a lunch bag letdown, that it was, everything else came out and it was like, we're going to turn on the switch today. And with O3, I don't know, I guess from my standpoint, it felt like, wow, we've got this 12 days of Shipmas, but oh crap, we only have 11 things. Let's come up with something else that we can add to the 12th, which is O3 is not quite ready yet, but we'll announce it and it'll be coming soon. Now, and I'm being more cynical than I should, but I mean, it's a huge leap forward for those people that need that reasoning model. But, and as Marcel said, that this isn't something that everybody and their brother is going to use. And it's not only is it not for everybody, but it's also coming soon.
It's also extremely expensive to be able to run the sorts of things that you do with that. And the extremely expensive part of it, perhaps is something that we're, I'm overselling here. Because again, these aren't things for us. And there have always been a lot of things that are not for us. It's like when somebody buys a brand new fMRI machines, I may take advantage of the fact that this machine exists, but it's not like it's something I buy and I put in my living room because I think it would be fun to do MRIs when people come over to visit. Like this, it's not for me. All right. And O3 wasn't for me or you or any of us here. And I think that's going to be the case with anything else that goes a step beyond that, whether it's O4 or O5 or whatever the heck it is you want to call it. Increasingly, these are tools that are for applications well beyond serving the general public on a one-to-one basis. And I think we have to accept that. And that makes it in some ways, if you'll pardon the expression, a little less sexy, okay? Because it's not like it's a new piece of jewelry that we get to wear or something like this that we get to show off to other people. No, this is something that other people somewhere get to use and take advantage of. Just like a spacecraft, for instance, if you want to get on board a SpaceX rocket to deploy a whole bunch of satellites or something like that, how often do you personally need to deploy a satellite? It's a fairly, exactly. It's a fairly rare event, and the kinds of computations that O3 and O4 and O5 and whatever are going to be used for is not the sort of thing that we are going to be exposed to on a day-to-day basis.
But this is going to be an issue for them throughout, and it's coming up in a number of cases. I'm not sure. Maybe you've got deeper into this. I'm not sure. I think there will be a version of O3 launched for the general public, but they've done this before. Sora was launched last February, and too damned expensive, too big, couldn't, whatever they were doing with it. And they went away and talked to the film industry, and we all felt hurt. You're not talking to us. Then they came back with Sora, and really wasn't that good. And I believe largely because they stripped the model down because of cost. I don't believe they spent 10 months talking to people in film and in the people who are doing high quality, longer video presentations, things like that. I don't believe they spent all that time talking to them and came back with a model that was worse than what they started with. So how do you account for that? One way you account for that is they're giving us a smaller model. And that's very, just because of the cost of running these things. And so we'll get back, because, and I don't know if you noticed over the holidays, even O1 has a limit. And because I'm one of those guys, like O1 is way better than 4. Yeah, sure. 4.0 could do 98% of everything I want to do, but I'm paying for this. I want the premium. So I'm punching O1 all the time. Eventually it comes up to you and says, you have 21 more questions you can ask O1.
Yeah.
And
Except that I'm like you in the sense that pay for this stuff, I want to take advantage of it. But you know what? For quick responses, for just stuff that I want to do back and forth and so on, I have actually stopped going to O1 all the time for my questions. And that's not because of hitting limits. It's because I'm just looking for an answer. I'm looking for an answer quickly. I want to bounce some ideas back and forth. And I want to do it in a natural, fast way without having to wait 20 seconds or 30 seconds or a minute for the model to respond. So I get what you're saying, but I don't think that's necessarily a big thing. Can I touch on the whole Sora video model thing here?
Sure. Yeah. Since I raised it, you can do your cross-examination. No one can object.
It's not so much a cross-examination, but I was looking at some people who were using Sora in a rather fascinating way. It turns out that if you're trying to generate a video from scratch, it might not necessarily be the best thing right out of the gate. But in terms of continuing the action on something that you've already created, apparently it's quite good for that. And if you have a video that you generated with like Minimax or something like that, and you want a high resolution version of that video, apparently Sora is like second to none for doing that, for upscaling a video that you've already created. And people are using it for that sort of thing, even if they're not necessarily using it out of the gate for creating things. Now, to get basically unlimited access and without the watermark on it, obviously you have to be paying the $200 a month. But this is where it's going to get to really interesting. And here we go with the prediction for this year. Apparently, the rumor mill is that not only is VO2 going to be a VEO2, I should say, VO from Google is going to be available relatively soon, but apparently they're talking about rolling it into the standard $20 a month plan. Exactly, the $20 a month plan for Google Gemini, which I'm already paying for. So that would be like
impressive.
Incredibly impressive if that is actually the case. And so you will find at that point that if they're going to respond to this in any way, shape, or form whatsoever, OpenAI is probably going to make the full version of Sora available and come up with some way to take those limits off of people. So you won't have to pay the $200 a month for a pro plan. So we'll find out whether Google is actually going to do that. But apparently it's close, as in they're talking about doing this soon.
Well, talking about funds and fees and so forth, one of the things that I saw recently too was there was an interview that Sam Altman had done, I think it was with Bloomberg, talking about costs and so forth, and that he's talking about potentially doing I think he called it usage-based pricing model. And Marcel, this kind of had me thinking too, when you were talking about the cycles that are required to be able to run O3, is that I'm wondering if that may end up being, it may not be O3, maybe it's O4 or O5, but is that potentially how they're going to roll out costing on that? Because I've got the plus, so I pay the $20 US a month. I've got access to O1 and O1 Mini. I very rarely use it, primarily because it is limited access to it, and I don't want to use it all up and then later in the month go, oh crap, I need to use it. And same as you, Marcel, that 99.9% of what I do, I can do with 4.0, but I can't picture them rolling O3 into a $20 a month plan.
I see what you're saying, but I think that what is more likely to happen, okay, is that they are going to figure out a way for the model to realize on its own when it needs those advanced capabilities. And you won't specify, I want to use O1 for this. Like right now, some of us, like Jim in particular here, apparently says, I'm paying for this. I'm going to bloody well use O1 for everything that I do. Well, I paid my money. I want something for it. Anyway, but I think what's going to happen is that the model will say, I need to be able to do this kind of advanced reasoning. Therefore, I'm going to call on this other model to do these things. I think that is a much more likely scenario. And here's another thing that I think is going to change that landscape dramatically. We're talking about something that's like right now, okay? And I don't know that a lot of us actually expected them to deliver O1 full to us at the beginning of the Shipmas. But that was like a big surprise right out of the gate. You must have seen the presentation. I know that Jim has. I don't know if John has the digits presentation from NVIDIA.
Oh, yeah.
The little digits computer. It looks like a little Mac Mini.
Yes.
It's like this big. Okay. It's a little tiny, except it's a super freaking computer on your desktop for $3,000. You're going to have a teraflop computer with 128 gigabytes of RAM on the thing that is going to have a GPU chip, the next generation, the Blackwell chip, if I remember correctly. And it is supposed to be able to run a full GPT 4.0 model off freaking line in your house on your desktop. By the way, it runs Linux. Just want to say. And I am,
man. I was going to say,
so it's going to have errors.
Got me. I was going to say, can it run the Mac OS?
Yes. Screw the Mac OS. This thing is this. If it was available today, I am plunking down my money. I'm not even waiting. I'm going to buy this thing right now.
That's so unlike you, Marcel.
I'm sorry. Someday I would pay money to watch the look on your wife's face with the next thing you buy. And I'm not saying that everybody reports it to their wife. I'm not trying to be sexist about this, but I have the same thing because my wife looks at me all the time and goes, you bought what? And it's not telling me how to spend the money, but it's just, you bought what? You can explain this to us, but it's telling it to yourself. And the last person you have to rationalize with is yourself. Yeah, I needed this. I really did.
But honestly, like to me, this is like almost, and I can't believe I'm about to say this, but this is almost like the last computer you'll ever need to buy.
Yeah.
Okay. Because you're talking about a machine, like I have a Lenovo Legion 5 PC or notebook that I'm using for this right now. It's a capable notebook. It's not like the most powerful. It's a couple of years old now. Actually, it's 3 years old now, but it's a really good laptop. It's a gaming laptop. But you know what? This thing is going to be like 1,000 times more powerful. I'm trying to imagine if I can envision a computer on my desktop that is going to require the kind of chops that are 1,000 times more powerful than something that's already 1,000 times more powerful than I am.
Yep. I used to work for Coca-Cola in Canada, and you'd go into their data center and it was water-cooled mainframes and all the rest of that, which and you now probably get more performance out of one of these than you got out of one of those mainframes. Yep. And now you look at this little box coming from NVIDIA and you compare it to what people or companies paid millions and millions of dollars for from these mainframes previously.
I think you're onto something, Marcel, when you talk about how these models will be dealt to us as they're needed, because we as humans have just pointed out for various reasons that we are incapable of making a rational choice about which route is better for processing. I want this brand new computer. I really want a brand new Mac. That's why I'm looking at the new M4s coming out and I'm going, I really want to get one of those and all that sort of stuff. But the reality is there's nothing that my current 2-year-old MacBook Air can, there's nothing I do that it can't do, or that this little Windows computer that I bought for $300 can do. But we look at this and but we look at it and go, wow, I want to have this new thing. And that's why I think this automatic routing is going to be part of the future for sure. And also because of the economics. And I don't think anybody's pointed this out. OpenAI, even though it has 300 million people a week using this chat GPT, and it won't tell you how many of them are paying $20 and how many are paying $200, how many of them are freeloaders or people are getting it for free. But they're going to lose $45 billion this year.
Yeah.
Like I used to say, $1 billion here, $1 billion there. Soon you got real money. We're talking like 10 billion here, 10 billion, $45 billion is going to be spent maintaining all of this sort of stuff. They have to make some economic sense of this in our lifetime, which, or in AI years, is like 7 months.
Sorry, I was just going to say, Jim, you and I were joking about, we're both Mac users. I'm a mix, but we were talking about this before with Apple Intelligence, and that Apple Intelligence, as Marcel pointed out, will actually ask you or tell you that it needs to go out to ChatGPT for certain things. And maybe that's where this is going to progress to is, and quite frankly, I'd be fine with it, that if I set my default as 4.0 and I ask it something and it says it would be better to go to 0.1, are you okay with that? Or even potentially, this is better to go to 0.3 and there is a surcharge to do that. Would you be willing to pay that?
Well, the upsell is certainly a part of it. Perplexity is trying to do that right now. Perplexity, which is really a stealth search engine that is giving Google a run for its money. Although I'm having trouble. I use Perplexity a lot, but GPT-4 is incredible for search.
Keep in mind that Perplexity is using Claude and is using ChatGPT. Like they don't have their own AI model. That they're not an AI creating shop. They're an application built on other artificial intelligence programs, which is not to knock what Perplexity has done. It's just that they don't have their own proprietary model or even open source model.
Yeah, they didn't have to spend all that money, and they're delivering a hell of a service. And I think that's, and still hitting Google where they live. Anyway, but back to this whole thing of the economics of AI and having to solve those. I still believe you got the right. I can't believe I'm agreeing with you, Marcel. I think that this automatic finding the right engine is going to be there. Because the other thing that's happened we really focused on over the past month that flew under the radar, there's a lot of small models coming out now. And this whole thing, if we're going to burn big energy and all of that sort of stuff, and that's going to be a big cost. And there's some debate about that cost as well right now. But let's say that there's going to be a big cost for running these AI monsters. If you can find the right problem and route it to a small model, a mere 7 billion parameters instead of a trillion or whatever ChatGPT 4 has, if you can route it to a small model, you'll get a faster answer and often a more accurate answer from a specialist, from a model that really specializes in one thing or another. And that is definitely a wave of the future. There's just no question about it.
Well, even for simple things like home automation, for instance, Assistant and your friend whose name begins with an A, which I won't say because I don't want to turn on your assistant there at home, Jim. Even those sorts of things are pretty mediocre, really, when you come right down to it. They're actually, you have to learn to speak assistant speak, and as opposed to being able to just use the natural language of an AI model. So for things like that, the cheapest and the smallest models can do that job not only admirably, but better than the current crop of AI assistants that are out there right now. And certainly no more expensive. When we get into this idea, and I do think that there is a future, unless, of course, NVIDIA is just making shit up here when he's doing this presentation, I think that kind of onboard local home-based processing is a big part of the future as well, where we will not have to always go out to the internet to do these things. And all these worries about using up all these different resources and data centers may actually start to fade into the background. The fact is, we are in a weird place where we're still trying to figure out things that are happening so incredibly fast that we simply can't keep up with it. Actually, Altman put out a thing, and I'm going to blow it here, but he said, I always wanted to write a 6-word story. And he did this
Yeah.
on X a couple of weeks ago, which is near the singularity, unsure which side. Or if,
That's it.
and
No, I think
is
I
that
got-
what it is? Okay. Did I get it right? Okay, good.
Yep, I think so.
And the singularity, for anybody who doesn't know this, who's listening to this, who doesn't know this, is actually based on the whole idea of an astronomical singularity, namely a black hole. As in, once you pass the event horizon, there's no going back, including for things like light. But it's also it also references the title of a book by Ray Kurzweil from several years ago called The Singularity is Near. And more recently, The Singularity is Nearer. And I've read both of them. I finished the second one back at the beginning of December. And the idea there is that we're approaching a level of technological complexity and development, particularly in areas like artificial intelligence, where things will accelerate past the point where any single human being on the planet is actually even remotely able to keep up with it. And I think in some ways we're not there yet, but I think we're getting awfully close because things are starting to happen at a pace that we really cannot keep up with. And there are still like rooms of people who are on top of these things, who are following these things, but eventually all of this will surpass them as well. And O3 is like the first glimmer of this, with the idea, like you talked about Sabine saying, this is a problem that it would take me a year to go through, and this thing did it in a few minutes. We're on the doorstep of this thing. And AGI is one of those things that gets thrown around. People are going to say, AGI going to happen in 2025? Is it going to happen in 2026? You can make an argument that AGI is already here, because originally the definition went something like this. It is an artificially intelligent program that is more capable than a better than average human, like a skilled human being in most tasks. But you know what? These systems are capable, certainly from the perspective of doing artwork, of writing music, of creating poetry, of figuring out mathematical problems, of translating from one language to another, of giving me medical advice, giving me some thoughts about how to start a business, how to run any kind of an operation, whatever, much better than just about anybody that I know who is already incredibly bright. So they keep moving those goalposts, but the fact of the matter is there's an argument to be made for the idea that we already have AGI, and we did back in '01 with a model that is actually capable of reasoning step by step and coming up with some fairly intelligent answers to really complex problems.
Doesn't
Sorry,
that also, sorry, I was just going to say,
Please.
tied in with that, because in the 12 days of Shipmas, on at least one occasion, Sam Altman actually referred to AGI when he was talking about their products. And so this kind of goes back to the partnership between Microsoft and OpenAI, that my understanding is that partnership ends once OpenAI achieves AGI.
That is correct, but which is why now the new definition of
Yes, I love it.
AGI,
Yes.
the new definition is that it is a system that is capable of generating $100 billion in wealth.
Oh, there you go.
So $100 billion in profit.
In
So-
profit,
and-
sorry,
yeah,
yes.
because and this is why I believe that Altman has been reined in a little bit about talking about AGI. I think that's why they're changing the
Yeah.
terms. But let's just go back to reflect on this. When's the last time you heard anybody talk about the Turing test? We
Oh.
beat that to death.
You guys,
that-
that was the last
yeah.
time I heard it.
No, but that is faded from
Yeah.
the vocabulary now, because everybody accepts that you can be fooled by an AI. So then we got AGI, and we're going to start to define that, and we'll move the goalposts on that for whatever reason, be it the Microsoft agreement with Altman or whatever. We're going to move the goalposts on that. I think that O3 was AGI, and I think that's why I really do believe it. They've achieved it. If they haven't, Altman he's always cute about this stuff, but he has come out and said, we know how to build AGI. He makes very few definite statements. He tries to do these haiku things, these poems, and dance around this stuff because he used to get smacked by his COO about what he was saying. And I watched it happen in an interview. Like the early board was, they might have been afraid of him lying to them. They were also afraid of what he would say in public. Because
I heard somebody, like in the last 24 hours, I heard somebody refer to him as the hype master general.
Oh, yes, absolutely. But he has said in no uncertain terms that they know how to build AGI. So
Yes,
they
he
have it,
has. Yes, he
or,
does.
Oh
or,
yeah.
so we're there. Now, what's the
Yeah.
next thing? And you notice he's now defined the next one. What is it? Super intelligent AI camera. Yeah.
Yes.
So
Now,
yeah,
that is humanity's last invention. There's a book called Superintelligence, co-written by Max Tegmark. But the idea was that once we achieve superintelligence, that is humanity's last invention. Because by definition, this superintelligence will be able to outthink, outdo, outperform, out-invent, out everything that any human being is capable of doing, which means that basically humans will never have to create a new invention of any kind ever again, because this thing by the very definition will be able to do anything and everything. The book that I'm talking about was actually
okay.
called Superintelligence. So do we
Yeah.
want to go through? We were going to talk about our predictions for
We've got
2025.
predictions
do we
for
want to
next
do
year.
that?
Yeah, we've got
I
off
think
track.
we've
Yeah.
already predicted a few, but
Let's start with predictions.
all right, who wants to go first?
You.
Go for it, Marcel.
You know what? I actually thought about this. I wrote down a bunch of things and by the way, and I sorted them I came up with 3 categories, all but guaranteed, likely, and pipe dream, as in this ain't happening. People are talking about it, but it's just not happening.
Marcel, the stage is yours.
All right. So just for fun, I've got a list let's go with the all but guaranteed. I think that we are going to see the year, and you didn't want to talk to me about multimodal. You keep putting me off on that one, but
Next
this is
week.
the year of multimodal. We are going to see models that are standard with text, image, video camera input, where basically you have your phone pointed at something. And this has already been demonstrated, but it's going to be on everybody's phone, and it's going to be available with all of the major models. Don't
Yes,
know
for
about
sure.
Anthropic, because for some strange reason, Anthropic seems to be really slow to giving us multimodal capabilities. I don't get it, but you're going to see it in Grok. You're going to see it in Gemini. You can already see it in AI Studio, Google's AI Studio, but I'm talking about in an app on your phone. Okay. It's going to be available to absolutely everyone. So this is the year of multimodal. Everything you're going to see, it's got, you name it, video capabilities. I'm working on this problem. Have a look at this. I'm looking at this outside. What am I looking at? This is all going to happen real time for everyone. And all the apps out there, for instance, the ones that you point at a plant and say, what kind of a plant is this? I don't know what any of these people are going to do, because you're going to be able to just do that with your phone, and
You don't need to
wherever
buy the
you are.
products anymore to do it.
Yeah, in real time, this stuff is going to happen. Agents is my next thing. And by agents, I am talking about artificially intelligent programs that are able to act autonomously on their own. You give them a task, they go out and do it. They visit a website, they visit another website, they collect information. If you want to take a trip somewhere or something like that, it goes off and it takes a look at what all the various prices are. And then it comes back to you and says, I can arrange you to leave at this time or whatever. And then if you agree with these prices and these dates or whatever, it goes out and it does all of that stuff for you. Now, the actual plunking your money down thing, I don't know if that's going to be happening at the end of 2025, but agents that you can send off to autonomously do things for you, particularly research, are going to be normal by the end of this year. So agents, big deal. This is one for John. This is for you, John.
Thanks,
This is for
Marcel.
you, John. You suggested that security issues with AI models, particularly things like prompt injection and so forth, would be a thing for this year. I turned it around. I'm turning it around, and I'm predicting that what we are going to see is AI powered attacks on existing and legacy systems. Not
For
so
sure.
much people attacking models. And the reason I don't think it's going to be a big deal so much with attacking models is that every time that you prompt a model, there is a level of uncertainty in terms of the sort of stuff that it comes by. We call them hallucinations. I call them creativity. But because of that, there's no guarantee that the prompt that you use is going to generate a response that you can guarantee is absolutely going to happen. The model may catch it. The model may not catch it. The model may even flag what you're trying to do as something bad because of whatever guardrails that's put in place. But using AI agents to go out there and probe systems en masse is going to be a big deal. And I read something a few days ago that one of the places that they're particularly concerned about this is all of the programs that are written with C++. which I don't have to tell you is a
Okay.
lot
Yeah.
of
Oh,
programs.
yeah. Yeah.
And there are some suggestions that people should be looking at models that are more secure, sorry, not models rather, but programming languages that are more security oriented, like Rust,
Yeah.
as
Yep.
opposed to, all these things that are written in C++, and maybe using agents en masse to start looking for C++ programs and converting them. So it's going to be really interesting. But from a cybersecurity perspective, I think it's not the models we have to worry about. It's the agents spawned by the models that are going to go out and turn the world upside down for
I'm gonna
legacy systems.
I'm going to stop you there for a second because you said two things, and that I totally agree with your first point, but
Yes.
we are going to get attacked. The models are going to be attacked. They are being attacked. You've got prompt injection right now, and prompt injection, basically a way of introducing something to the prompt that changes what it can do. There's also indirect prompt injection, which is I will just shuffle you some data. It will look like data, and I'm going to change it. All of those, your scenario works perfectly in that we sort of don't trust AI anyway. We're going to be okay with that until you have autonomous agents. And just the simplest
Yep.
example of that is Betty, my autonomous agent. I don't know, I'm sexist that I am calling it a female name, sorry. But Betty, my autonomous agent, is going to book my vacation, and Betty's going to do all these things, and that'll be fine, and book the airfare. And I just think that's just fantastic until somebody slips a prompt injection that causes Betty to go out and buy things for them with my credit card number or whatever. That's the danger nobody's talked about with agents. And I think that's one of the things where we're going to be vulnerable. But the attack that you talked about, absolutely. And anybody who's ever done a system with C++ knows just how incredibly complex that is and how incredibly difficult it would be to see the change in a pointer or one little piece of C++. So that, I think we are, but we're still going to see agents. Mark Benioff from Salesforce, they're selling them now.
Yeah.
He's
Oh,
saying,
yeah.
I'm
Agent
CEO and
Agent Force.
I manage
Yep.
people and agents. And I don't think it's hype to say almost all of us are going to be working with an AI fellow employee over the next year.
Yep.
And right down to, never mind, and people have talked about, I hate it with people in Silicon Valley that say things like, unless it talks about atoms, in other words, unless it moves something physical, AI will take it over. BS. There's a guy in Edmonton with a construction company who can't find enough people, and he's starting to use robots to do today, like right
Yes.
now, starting to do robots to do construction.
By the way, that is another one of my all but guaranteed, you are going to start seeing, if not humanoid robots walking around your neighborhood, because I don't think that's necessarily going to be this year, but I think you're going to see huge investment this year in humanoid robots from businesses of all types, whether it's warehouses, manufacturing plants, stuff like that. There are going to be like tens of thousands of orders for humanoid robots coming into the pipe this year. And one of the things that I'm watching really closely is apparently we are very close, or at least if you believe the rumblings that are coming out of Tesla and X, we are very close to seeing Grok 3 or Grok 2.5, perhaps. There may be a 2.5 model somewhere in there. But pretend for a second that they finally have a model that is comparable with 4.0, okay, which is what they're trying to achieve, at least 4.0 or better. And marry that with the Optimus robots, the Optimus humanoid robots. Okay. Again, I'm not saying that you'll see them on the street this year, but you'll see the orders start pouring in this year.
And didn't I see somewhere that they were referring to, I think they called it physical AI.
Yeah.
And it may have been
That's
from
Jensen Huang.
NVIDIA. Yeah.
Or embodied AI, if you prefer. Yeah.
No, he used the term physical AI. He's trying to define this for himself and for very good reasons. The NVIDIA is the top of the heap right now. You need GPUs. One of the things we talked about was making smaller models and all of that sort of thing. There's a big move happening now. You probably caught it, guys, is that we're not talking about foundation models so much. Everybody's almost acknowledging there's no more data. You got to do something different. And so what are they talking about? Learning at inference. No, they're talking about small models. Why bother reteaching these things? I'll create a small specialist model and an aggregate of those. And you'll see if you go back and check the Chinese models, many of them will tell you that they're 4.0. They're
Yeah, well,
ChatGPT.
you're talking about DeepSeek. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
DeepSeek. Yeah,
Yeah.
DeepSeek is actually a fascinating model. I spent a little bit of time working with it, and it's pretty impressive. But apparently, there have been cases where somebody said, "What model are you running?" I'm running GPT-4o,
Yeah.
which I don't know about you, but I'm not sure that I don't believe that's true.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
whatever. The whole thing of the big foundation models in reading the internet is moving out, and a lot of new learning techniques that people are talking about. One of them, or we'll call it learning at inference instead of the big training model. Learning at inference, and inference is, for some ungodly reason, the term that everybody uses for what happens after you ask the question. Don't ask.
Yeah.
But so
Well,
you've got an inference model, and that piece of it. Now, there's a couple of learning methods that are out there that really, and this is why I say we are at AGI, because a couple of the learning methods that are out there right now are not just simplistic trial and error like they did with Go. Simplist sounds. Every time we trivialize something could happen, I go, oh my God, that was a miracle at the time. When Google taught its AI to win at Go, to beat world champions in something that had immense probabilities, that's now buckled down. And they've even got terms for it. The Monte Carlo, that's it. The Monte Carlo you used to use for risk assessment. Basically, they just spin off 1 billion tries at something and it'll find the one that works. And the one thing that AI is really good at that people don't appreciate, and this is what we get it wrong sometimes. AI is really good at evaluating. It's really good at finding errors when you ask it. Matter of fact, I was saying to Marcel before we started, one of the biggest ways that I get out of hallucinations right now is I put in one more prompt to say, check your work and make sure that this is all accurate. And it comes back and reports on itself. So
Yep.
you've got this Monte Carlo, try 1 billion things and find out. And then you've got the reasoning capability that we've started to see from O1. And that's taking another piece of this chain of thought type thing that was in other words, I'll start to construct how I solve a problem, and I'll do it step by step, and I'll be more accurate. That's pretty much foundationally established. But when you can put that with reflection, humans do this naturally, which is, I want to try a new thing. So I'm going to try this. I'm going to get 2 steps into it, and I'm going to go, no, that's not going to work. Looked like it was going to work. And that's something that was really hard for AI. It's not so hard anymore.
Yeah,
So
which is the whole crossword puzzle thing, right? It's
Yeah.
like this word obviously fits in here, but it doesn't fit once I take the word that goes down from one of these letters.
So
Yeah.
these things can learn at inference time. And that's a huge jump forward in terms of where we're going to get to with these models. And so the world is open for all kinds of new possibilities and much more accuracy and ability.
And I think that you talked about agents, we've talked about these smaller models, and I think you may find that there's going to be, I'll call them agent-specific models that get created, that you don't need 4 trillion elements that to deal with something that is very specific in a specific agent. So I think there's going to be a lot of changes that come out as to how people are going to use these things. How is an agent going to use it? And so that, because one of the things we talked about O1 versus 4.0, and that O1 takes a little more time, everybody's impatient. And if you're using an agent, you want the fastest response you can get. And so if there's a way to pare down the model that the agent is using to give you even faster response, that I think you may see some of that happening.
Yep.
Okay, I'm going to throw a little bit of a correction on here from my perspective. There are things I know that if I could rely on my AI, and of course, there will be a gazillion AIs. It won't be like one monolithic AI.
Yeah.
There will be a gazillion AIs. If I can rely on it to find some things for me, to do some things for me, it's not going to be that big a deal for me that it doesn't give me the answer instantaneously. I would be perfectly happy to talk to my speaker here and say something like, I'm looking for this, check these things out and then get back to me and let me know. And that is the sort of thing that I would throw at a human assistant. I have no trouble with an AI going out and doing these things for me. And I think that we're going to get used to that more and more. The idea that we can rely on these things to not just give us an answer. And we're getting bogged down on this whole, like, I want an answer to this. I want a picture generated right now. I want these words, like I want these things like right now, as opposed to this collaborative process where we're working with with various AIs to do certain things that aren't necessarily going to happen instantly. And one of the places where, and again, this is all but guaranteed, by the way, because I've seen the beginnings of this already. Some of and apparently not everybody has this yet. So I guess it's being rolled out in various stages. But now I'm actually able to talk to Chat GPT about conversations that we had months ago. And it can find those, and I'm not talking about hitting the search button. I'm
Yeah.
saying about, remember when we talked about this, or did we talk about this way back when? Oh, yes, I remember back in whatever we discussed these sorts of things. And it's capable of pulling that information. All but guaranteed for this year is an infinite memory, so to speak, from your favorite AI agent that or model that it is that you subscribe to. In other words, it will start to remember things. You are going to be able to say, remind me that I need to talk to so-and-so at this time. Have I already contacted this person to do this? Where did I leave my key? I had an extra set of keys and I stored them somewhere. I told you about this last year or 6 months ago or whatever, where, oh, they're over there. You can go and find them. I think this is all but guaranteed because partly it's starting to roll out now, obviously. I've been able to do that. So think of it as RAG, personal RAG, where it starts to recognize all of the things that you've talked about, all the things that are in your history. And it truly becomes useful on a personal level because it knows you on a personal level.
Yeah. A friend of mine, Ray McKenzie, wrote a book in the 1990s called The Relationship-Based Enterprise. And he plugged in one thing that was missing on CRM, and that was it has to remember me. And was everything you could do efficiently, you thought was great, but you would think that the CRM was stupid if it didn't remember you. And I think this memory thing, and you picked it up, first of all, I've been
Yep.
looking for it. I haven't seen it come in yet, but memory will be one of the things, the sleeper issues that is going to make AI highly functional. We've got
Yeah.
all these multiplicity of tools. I've been trying the Google stuff. I've been trying OpenAI. I just finally stopped paying for Claude because it didn't integrate with enough stuff. It would say, oh, well, I'll integrate with your Google Doc. Yeah, okay. If you tell me where the Google Doc is, thank you very much. That's my problem. I know it's in there somewhere. I can't find it. That's my issue. So when you get to memory, I think we're going to be at the point where if something could remember what you were talking about it with and come back to it, it's there. Now, I've seen it slightly because I do this thing where I've got a prompt and I keep refining my prompt. And you can say, I could store that. I could do a gem. I could do a GPT. And the other day, and I was actually going to call you and ask you Marcel, what you thought I should use for this. But then I looked at it and it said, do you want me to remember that for you? And I went,
There you go.
oh God, yes.
Yeah.
Please, because I'm incapable of it. I've got to go look through. Thank God they've got projects now so I can organize things. But I got to look through 50 lines to go, which one of these did I have that prompt in? And now it's just, I say, I'm working on this. Do you remember this prompt? Oh, yeah. And I went, wow.
The other
Yeah,
thing
and
I
in
wonder,
fact, you can start saying this just like when you're working with either Gemini or OpenAI specifically. I'm not going to speak on all the other ones at the moment, but those two specifically, start using the words, remember this for me, or I want you to remember this for me. And it
Yeah.
will automatically start adding that to its list of things that it remembers. Like right now, I've noticed that if I'm looking for information on a particular topic, it will occasionally say things like, is this the sort of thing that you're interested in for your son? And it'll give me my son's name. Like I have taught this thing, first of all, to treat me in a conversational, friendly way. Like I say, I'm a casual guy. I want you to treat me casually. So I don't want you to talk to me like you're a hands-off agent from something else. I want you to talk to me as though you and I work closely together on a regular basis and you treat me on a personal basis. So I've already taught my AIs to work with me in that way. But it does do that. Like it will actually pull out those memories and say, oh, is this the sort of thing that you were looking for here? With the idea that that's the case, then I'm going to treat this information differently in whatever it is that you're asking me to do at this moment.
I also wonder, though, like we've talked about, OpenAI came out with a whole bunch of things even as late as the end of the year. And Google Gemini has come out with a variety of different things that are different than what ChatGPT came out with. And Microsoft, maybe. Perplexity has had things, Meta has had things. And I'm wondering if part of what we're going to see throughout 2025 as well is, I'll call it a leveling of the playing field, that the things that Google doesn't do that ChatGPT currently does, is Google going to incorporate those things into their product, and the things that the video things and that Google can do that Sora or others aren't doing, will they be pulling those in there? And so that, Jim, you talked about, I had to use this tool for one thing and I had to use this tool for another. Are we potentially going to get to a point where, I have a preference to use ChatGPT, whereas Marcel has a preference to use Google Gemini, but we can both do the same things coming out of it, or the majority of the same things?
Okay. First of all, I want to point out that was my very first prediction. Okay.
Okay.
That multimodal capabilities, in other words, audio, video, speech, you name it,
Yeah.
is all going to be standard for everybody. That's going to, and again, like I said, I don't know about Anthropic, but certainly OpenAI and Gemini, it's just going to be on your phone. You're going to be able to do all these things, period. Okay. That will happen. It is happening. It's guaranteed. However, I also want to remind you that in the same way that you know more than one person, and that for this thing, you're willing to call this person and chat with them about it, and for something else, you'll talk to a different friend about it. I think that you'll start to think of I hate using the word agents at this point, but it's starting to feel like we need to use that word. But your particular AI, you'll have a couple of them on call that you rely on. And you will start to understand whether one of them is better than the other at doing these sorts of things. And you'll just subconsciously say, I want this to happen, I'll talk to Gemini. I want this to happen, I'll talk to OpenAI. And oh, by the way, Google and OpenAI, if you're out there and you're listening to this, I want to be able to give my AI a name. I want to be able to call on my AI by a particular name, in the same way that we say, hey, Google, or Alexa to get the attention of our particular assistants. I want to be able to use those words to bring up a particular model. And for an app developer out there who's looking for something to develop, and I want this by the end of 2025, by the way, I want a central app that listens all the time, that pulls up whatever model and whatever resources I want on the fly, without me having to, like right now, there's a hot word on your phone and it's tied to the particular. I don't want that. I want a separate app that brings in whatever it is that I want at the given moment. So people out there,
in other words, the interface of our computers gets replaced.
Exactly. Thank you.
That's what happens. And at the top level, I think there's going to be two struggles. I don't have 100% on this one. I don't know. Two struggles are going to happen in terms of that our agents are going to drive, or the multiplicity of models. One is something's going to keep me detached. Somebody's going to come up with your idea, Marcel, and isolate me from being stuck with one particular model. It's going to find the right model for me at one particular time and do all that for me. That is a yet to be. Interesting. At the middle level, these models are all going to copy themselves. There'll be a few months out, but everybody's going to have everything. But the ones that are going to get killed, I think, is right now, and this is something people need to watch if they're doing development with this. Be careful. I can't tell you for sure what's going to happen, but there's a whole pile of people who are selling software middleware that makes agents. And I think those guys are going to get blown out of the market. Why? Because I think ChatGPT is going to just evaporate that, as they have everything else. They'll absorb these other components and bring them in. Why? They have to. And that's like Microsoft. That's been the Microsoft model for 10 years. Let somebody develop something really cool. They take it, you de-risk it, I'll buy it. And only in this case, ChatGPT's been different, and I think Google may be different. Forget buying it now. We're going to make it. Not so hard.
Yeah, because they were a provider of the engine.
Yeah.
which you accessed using an API or using some kind of a wrapper or whatever. And they have turned into an application provider where it's not just smarts behind the scenes, it's the application at every level and every layer. And I feel bad for companies. Hey, I almost did it, but I feel bad for companies that are trying to build something on top of these things only to have it turn around and be able to do these things without having to do that. I love the idea that I can just have a conversation and have it generate and build things. But that's hard for companies that are trying to anticipate what's going to happen and somehow build a whole company around something that you're not sure you can rely on 6 months down the road.
And I think you're going to find too, the ones that are at the table but are slower to market are going to get beaten out and are just going to, there's not going to be any market for them.
We need to wrap. So let's go there with our predictions. What, Marcel, just wrap up yours and just as the summary.
Okay, so I'm going to give you just a few that are likely. I gave you the ones that I think are all but guaranteed, and I did a bunch of them. So I think that there's going to be a widespread adoption of these AI creative partners. I think we're all going to start thinking of these things as our creative work, whatever partner. They're going to be our co-workers, and we're all going to start thinking that way. I think you're going to see, it is a likely thing. I think the level of AI development, specifically as it starts to work its way into into physical systems like robots or whatever, are also going to have a huge impact on driving. I'm not saying we're going to see like a host of self-driving vehicles, but there are going to be breakthroughs in self-driving vehicles, which are going to push that forward, certainly in the next 5 or 10 years or so. I also see that we're going to see AI-powered NPCs for video games. Video games are about to change forever. Every video game is going to be a unique experience for each player because you're going to be able to talk to the NPCs, interact with them in ways that you never did before. And that's going to be particularly cool if you're somebody like me who uses a virtual reality headset. And of course, who builds the most popular virtual reality headset? It's Meta. Who is Meta? The company behind Meta AI. You can bet your bottom dollar that this stuff is going to be incorporated into video games, and it's going to be freaking awesome. And I know we're running out of time, so I'm going to shut up there and let somebody else do some talking.
No, but it's also going to come into programming. You watch that's those same virtual reality tricks are going to go into programming, and it's going to be interesting. John, what's your big take?
Yeah, Marcel grabbed most of what I was looking at, but I think it's just everything is going to change. It's quite simply, everything that we know as it is today is going to look, well, not everything. Most of the things that we know as they are today are going to be different in the next 12 to 18 months. And I think, putting my cybersecurity hat on, that scares the hell out of me still. That I think that they always talk about the best way to incorporate cybersecurity is to build it in from the ground up. And I don't think that's been done with any of this AI. And
Nope.
We've talked about some of the potential end results of that is absolutely frightening for me personally, but also for businesses and things that I think people need to be cautious of what's coming forward.
And they should be. And because one of the things I've talked about, and I agree with Marcel, and I think in our discussion, we covered most of the points that I think I would make for next year, but I think risk is huge.
Mhm.
And forget that it's going to torture us and take us over and kill us and all that stuff.
Mhm.
That's later, and buy your popcorn. That'll come up later. But for next year, that employee that you're going to have that's an AI is going to be high risk.
Yep.
We've argued about this, Marcel, but I think the definitive proof has come through. These models lie, and they're good at it. They are psychopaths. They have no feelings, and they'll come up with the most realistic.
I want to do a whole show about this.
But I'm just saying don't count on an AI to sit there and go, that's a bad thing to do. Anything you can fool it to do, it will do. And one thing I've learned in cybersecurity is that even the most amazingly weird things you'd never think anybody would do, there's some guy sitting in a room eating cheesies in Russia who's going to figure it out. And so that big risk is there for sure. We count on them more. There's people will pound on them more. And I think that's going to be a thing that happens. And as a matter of fact, we're going to do a whole show, and you're leading that, as I'm told. I think I read it in our Discord. It's got to be true, on cybersecurity risk and AI. But it's also, if you're in the IT world right now, This is the biggest move of shadow IT into your
Oh,
organization.
yeah.
It's going to happen in the next 12 months. To quote that famous philosopher that I always use, Randy Bachman, if you think last year was something, but baby, you ain't seen nothing yet.
Yeah.
This is the biggest move. If you think that cloud and SaaS were big moves in shadow IT, it's nothing compared with what's going to happen in every organization. And employees are going to continue to sneak it in
Yes.
because they do now, and we know it. So that's
Many
buckle
Ray-Ban
up.
glasses,
Yeah,
anybody?
yeah. Oh, and the glasses. Oh my
Yeah.
God, that's a whole other thing. There's some of the things that are happening that people are doing with the virtual reality headsets. I saw another set of glasses the other day that knock your socks off. $400, $500. People are going to buy these things. That'd be another piece that I think is going to be great or be huge for us. So I think that's our wrap up, but we got a lot to talk about this year. And one of the things we'll talk about is the future of this show, because I think we may keep it as part of, and I want to put this to the audience, we can keep it as part of #trending, and we could spin it off as its own separate show, because we're going to continue to do it regardless for those people who are interested. So let me know what you think of our predictions. And you can reach me at editorial@technewsday.ca. That's editorial, easy to remember, Tech Newsday, simple, .ca. Or if you're watching this on YouTube, the comments are just down there.
The Discord server is going to be available there is a public Discord server. So if you want to get on there and yell at us and tell us how you're right and we're wrong, please come join us.
And I'd love to
Yeah,
hear other people's predictions too.
Yeah. So you can reach us, check out the Discord. If you want the link to it, it'll be if you're watching YouTube, we'll put the link in the notes so you can get there. Marcel will give me the invites because I'm apparently hopeless at this, but we'll put that in the YouTube, and that's it. So what I can say to everybody, thank you, John Pinard. Thank you, Marcel Gagné, for having this chat with me every week, and live long and prosper. And for everybody out there, buckle up. Going to be one incredible year.